Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's episode of A Christo Art interviewing other artists. And we've got Matt Stawicki on here. He's a legendary fantasy artist. Has worked for people like Wizards of the Coast, on Dungeons and Dragons, or Magic the Gathering. There's so many clients. He could probably list them all because he's basically like the grandfather of fantasy art. So I don't know if
Oh,
that. Sorry, I don't trying to make you feel old there, but he's been around for ages, and yeah. So here's Matt Stawicki. How you going, man?
good, good. It's good to be here with you.
Good to have you on the channel. So how have you been? How's things going?
Good, good. Yeah, for me, we were talking about a little bit. My some of my goals lately. I've really been trying to build out this sort of. I've been calling it my Dragons in Nature project, but
Cool.
we're still kind of working on the branding on that. But it's really just kind of an approach where it treats dragons more as animals.
Yeah.
It's even a little different from the fantasy approach where they're these sort of mythical creatures that may speak to you or have their own magic powers or whatever, that kind of thing. This is just if they really existed among us, what would happen?
Yeah.
And by that I mean, in some of them are very small. They're not all these giant fire-breathing Tyrannosaurus Rex type of creatures. So it's been an interesting world to explore for me because dragons are really at the heart of what I do and what I like about the fantasy art business.
Yeah.
So for me, I can work on them sort of endlessly. But
Yeah.
I have had some good response to it commercially over the years. People seem to be drawn to the pieces with dragons in them. So I just decided, a few years ago, I turned 50, and I wanted to just really take a shot at my own project. I've really been a freelancer for 30 years, so I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of put my effort into something that was more mine rather than just being a hired gun for somebody else and then being done with the project.
Yeah.
So
So
that's been really going pretty well. I mean, the paintings sell pretty well. Most of them. I mean, I only have a few of about the 30 that I've done left. So that does pretty well. And of course, I do the IX EluxCon here in the United States every fall, which is a great market for original fantasy art. It's a show like no other, as you know. It's
oh yeah.
just killer. So that's been great. I do have my own YouTube channel that we've just started up that shares a lot of the process videos of these smaller pieces I've been doing.
It's great.
So
That's
and
been
then
great. Yeah. That's
yeah, I
fantastic.
still do some paperback covers and a few other things like that, commercial work. I mean, I've taken on quite a few private commissions over the last 2 years. So that's been different from the past because I am trying to shift out of commercial work, but I just can't let it go yet. I have to build this other part of my business a little more before I can totally take the leap.
Yeah. So a lot of people like, I mean, you've worked on some amazing properties, and you have done, like, obviously I know you from Dragonlance. A lot of people know you from Dragonlance, and it's really like, I suppose I take my hat off to you for breaking away from that, because it is like going on that path. I've been there, going on your path, doing it, building your own universe, and I've been watching that on YouTube. It's a big journey, I suppose. Um, yeah. Do you have like any advice on that, like for people that are starting out, or whether they're either got clients already, like creating your own, I suppose, brand of art or series of art or whatever it is,
Yeah.
stories or comics? What is it? Just do it, or find time to do it, or what's a motivation for
Well,
people?
yeah, well, I think it is do it, but I think this is advice I give to people in the art business or people who want to get into the art business just across the board, which is paint what you like, or definitely work on a subject that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Um, not it's not just that I like to do tight drawings. I mean, I wouldn't want to say paint cars for a living or something like that, like
Yeah.
the automotive industry. Some guys render vehicles really well, or that's not really my thing. But the business is challenging. As you know, we spend a lot of time alone working on these paintings and these these projects and stuff like that. So you really have to have a passion for it. So my biggest, I mean, I think if you're going to be successful, you just have to really love it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, you know. I mean, how everybody gets to where they're at, we all zig and zag around this business a little differently, and everybody does it a little differently, honestly. You know, some people do it through sheer commercial work, some people through, you know, more crowd sourcing, crowd fundraising like Kickstarter and things like that. For some people, it's a combination. Some people, it's just doing a lot of shows. And there's a few different ways that you can make a living in the arts.
Yeah.
But you gotta. But believe me, it can get to be a grind if you're not really into it. So
yeah, I agree. I'm actually calling it the 8 tentacles of art business, and I'm like the whole Lovecraftian Cthulhu thing. So
yeah.
I've been jotting notes because I've been in the industry probably since 2011. I was doing it part-time prior to then, and I've come up with 8 ways in which you can make money. There are some that are better for some, like I'm really great at the Kickstarter platform and really good at selling at shows, as you know, and that's my bread and butter. I have had commercial clients, those 3. And so there's 2 that are stronger, you know, and then there's 1 that kind of lacks. But there's another 5 ways. There's, you know, there's licensing. There's many ways, as you probably know, with making money out of art. But at the end of the day, it's your passion. Like, you really got to love it, you know, like, and if you don't love it, like, it shows, you know, even in your Kickstarters or in your art or in the way you talk about your project, you have to have a passion and a drive, because like, no one's paying you to do the overtime. You know, there's overtime in this. You know, you don't get paid by the hour. It's basically paid on passion. And you can be rewarded sometimes, and you can't be rewarded. Like, you might be rewarded on something that you do really well, and then you might put love and attention into something, and, you know, the response isn't as good, or, you know, whatever it is, but you kind of have to... Right. Yeah, it's the passion that keeps you going forward. But at the end, there is a win for all of us, you know, because we're doing what we love, you know, so...
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, you know, along those lines, I did a piece years ago. I mean, I did it, I think it was around 94, actually. It's called The Dragon's Lair, and it's my most licensed piece of art. And it was a piece that I originally did as a portfolio piece with with some advice from my rep at the time then, who was in New York. And, you know, I just poured my heart and soul into it. And at the time, I didn't make a dime off it, you know, but over the years, it's probably brought in more revenue than any other single piece.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have to be willing to kind of knock yourself out sometimes, even, you know, if you're getting there and you're really like counting you know, I've been on this thing 20 hours and I don't think I'm going to get this much money and this and that, then maybe, you know, you got to rethink your business model a little bit. This business might not be for you.
Yeah, get into finance or something else, or I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I know you love dragons, because I was going to ask you, what is your most passionate thing? It's obviously dragons. For me, I'm caught between landscapes and dragons. I'm like you know me, I'm an environment guy, and then I also love I love creatures in general, but I like both of those, and that's why my journey's taking longer to grow, because I'm like, I love it all, you know. So, you know.
Well, I do too, and one of the things I was talking to someone else, and they were saying, you know, when you're doing sort of fine art paintings, you know, which is kind of what I consider these dragons in nature to be, because they're not specifically done for a product. Some of them get adapted for products, but they're not really done with that in mind. I forget what I was going to say. That went right out of my head.
We're talking about like the love of different things, you know, having a love for dragons or a love for environments or creatures or...
that there's really, in the fine art market, there's really only, you know, you've got portraits, you've got landscapes, and you've got still lifes. They're really the 3 pockets of paintings that people buy. So when I do these little dragon paintings, they kind of fall into one of those 3 categories, whether it's sort of a tabletop little intimate scene with the dragon doing something that's almost interacting with, you know, as a still life kind of thing. And then I do some as sort of where they're more landscape oriented, you know, big vistas with a dragon flying through it or something like that. But they all kind of fall into one of those categories, which I thought was sort of interesting. I'd never thought about it like that before.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And, you know, it's just, I think, you've probably been doing it for so long, you realize, like, dragons is like your core. Like I'm probably still having not as much experience, still developing my passion and like in terms of I like painting a lot of things, but who knows? Maybe when I'm at the end of my career, it'll be all landscapes. I don't know. We don't know. So I think that's
Yeah.
part of it. That's
Well,
what I love about it. That's what I love about
yeah.
it.
Yeah, when I first got in the business, my work was more like figure driven than it is now.
Yeah.
I was influenced so heavily by like Frazetta and Boris, so I was trying to emulate that kind of an approach. It's kind of changed over the years, and it may change again. If I get another 20 years in this business, I
Yeah.
may be singing a different tune down the road. So that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Do you like when? I mean, sorry, we're going to go back to talking about what you're doing now, but in your past, when you worked for Wizards of the Coast or you worked for D&D, or any big client, what is there any project or maybe two or three paintings that you were like it kind of was something that you really really love, like you're like, oh wow, this is such a privilege, or is there some highlight like in your commercial work that so far that you find that's been good?
It's funny. The paintings that I like, or whether it's digital or oil that I like, generally aren't based around a product.
Yeah.
It's more about the technical aspect of things, where I'll finish something and I'll just think, well, geez, this tree's really turned out well, or the sky looks great in this one, or something like that. That's what'll draw me to it. But Dragonlance was a great project to work on. D&D, I was aware of those properties. I hadn't read the books before I did a lot of the art for Dragonlance. I was more familiar with the artwork, with the Larry Elmore,
Yeah.
Jeff Easley, Keith Parkinson stuff.
Yeah.
So that kind of drew me in.
The big red dragon piece, Larry Elmer with the big red dragon. It's like a big red dragon, or am I getting it all confused?
Jeff did one like that.
That's right, yeah.
And Larry, I'm sure, did too. Yeah, everybody's taken a shot at that red dragon at one point or another. But I did a cover for one of the Conan books years ago, Conan and the Road of Kings, and I remember, again, because I was so influenced by Frazetta and Boris, that was a big big deal, even though it was just the one cover. But then it kind of really didn't turn out to be. I mean, it was a nice cover, but it wasn't something that like people think of me for now. Like they do with the Dragonlance stuff.
Yeah, that's all right.
So that was kind of neat. I mean, there's been so much stuff over the years. It's hard to keep it all straight
There you go.
anymore.
So you've done Conan the Barbarian stuff. That's pretty cool. I did not even know
Yeah,
that.
Conan.
Wow.
I did a bunch of Lord of the Rings stuff for Franklin Mint in the early 2000s when those movies first started coming out, the Peter
Wow.
Jackson stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's been some other authors along the way. I just did a job. Within the last year or so, a new piece for Tracy Hickman, and him and his wife are a writing team also, and they're starting this new world called the Sky Raiders of Abarax. They did a big Kickstarter and stuff, so I did a cover painting for that in the last year or so also. But
Wow.
I've been a little lax in showing any of my commercial work again, because I've been kind of focused on the dragons, but one of these days I'll have like an art dump on Facebook,
Yeah, don't put it on Facebook, man. Just put it on your website and make sure you got copyright protection on your website, because who knows where the images will end up on Facebook. People will illegally steal it and all that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Facebook really, their platform seems like it's tanking these days.
yeah,
It just seems it's chaos, and there's just nothing. It's hard to find anything on it anymore. So that's not the platform it used to be.
that's it. No, it's not. It's not. I think it's just crazy, and that's the big thing. That's why I've gone to YouTube, because at least I can create content, and it's almost like I can do it as I please. It's there.
Yeah.
If it ends up going viral, it goes viral. If it doesn't, at least it's there. It's a recording of what I've done, and it's almost like an archive of videos, Yeah, go on.
And something may go viral down the road. Something that you do now may not catch for 2 years, but at least it's there.
That's it.
Where in Facebook, it just disappears after a while, or a lot of these social medias.
That's it.
You got a few minutes to catch somebody's attention, and then it's gone. YouTube at least is at least for now, feels kind of stable.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Semi.
we'll talk about social media in a minute as well because, like, what that raised to the point. Just remember, we'll talk about Facebook and this whole short attention span stuff, and also with AI. But we won't, we'll talk about that in a minute. But we'll go back to your influences. You're saying like Boris Vallejo, Frank Frazetta.
Yeah.
Who are like the biggest influence for you? Like, who would you say? Like, are they the main
Well,
ones, or is there more? Like, obviously there would be.
oh, there's more. I mean, definitely like Keith Parkinson for sure.
Yeah.
James Gurney was huge
Oh
for
yeah.
me. He's and I know that he shares some influences. Some of the Orientalists like Jean-Leon Jerome, I love his work. Alma Tadema, or
Yeah.
I've heard his name pronounced a couple different ways. Those kind of guys, which I think Gurney really latched onto that look and went crazy with it with the first couple Dinotopia books.
Yeah. I've still got those books, so they're great.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Scott Gustafson, who's like more of a children's book illustrator, I think he has a wonderful style. Who I've loved his stuff since I first saw it. Just always has such a warmth about it, and the characters that he creates are great. And that's like a softer look than the hard-edged,
Yeah.
like Boris kind of thing. I mean, there's a million of them. Brahm and Todd Lockwood and Donato for the more recent guys that are of our sort of generation or of my generation. Yeah, I mean, it could go on and on. Most of those guys at IX, Stephen Hickman and Don Mates, some of those guys, they were all influences. A lot of guys who were doing paperback covers in the 80s, because that's sort of what I grew up looking at, was that business. So, and if you were painting fantasy back then, you were doing book covers. Even Gurney was doing them back then. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there would have been different times back then. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah. And I think like everything's changed. I mean, you had normal back then. Publishing was, there was a publishers, there was normal distribution avenues, and now all that is kind of it still exists, but it's not as big as it used to be. It's all digital distribution with Amazon and Kickstarter
Yeah.
and everything like social media, and I mean it's good. You could say some people think it's good, some people think it's bad. And I think
Yeah.
both models are there. Like you still got the traditional publishing. I was just talking to a mate who's a fine artist like me, and he does children's books, and he was saying how that he's basically, yeah, I suppose going more down the traditional route, and then he will go back to digital, like to more social media later. Like he's just going through publishers now because he feels more protected that way. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, I can sort of understand that. I mean, there's so much about the way things happen these days digitally that feels like the Wild West, that you want to, there's a tendency to want to try and lean on those traditions, but, like the paperback market, for example, my belief is, at least for painted art, like the stuff we were talking about in the 80s, I mean, that boom is kind of over. There's very little of that being done compared to big typography and stuff like that. And again, like you said, it's easier for them to have the author's name real big because all you're going to see is something on your phone on Amazon as you flip by. There are no real brick and mortars anymore, bookstores like there used to be. And, that used to be like an afternoon you could stand in front of what was essentially a big fantasy art gallery and just look at all these, hundreds of book covers. And, it's a shame that's gone. It was certainly something that I was involved with for a long time, but that's the way it goes. Things develop and things change. So, yeah, that market itself, I think, has kind of gone away as the narrative paintings, at least, of the guys like Parkinson that did some of the best covers.
Yeah, for sure. What is like your advice for, say, someone like myself or other artists that are up and coming in the industry, like in getting those bigger clients? Like I have had my time to shine. I have done stuff for Disney and Path of Exile. I've worked on some big games as well, but obviously for people that are even, I suppose not as experienced as me or just getting into the industry, they just finished their college or their university, or any sort of training, art training that they've done, how would you advise them to, I suppose, get those big clients like your Magic or your D&D or whatever, Pathfinder, or
Okay.
any
Well,
tips?
yeah, one thing is to really study the client themselves and the work that they are producing, and be honest with yourself about whether or not you think you are or can be a good fit for them. For example, like I just mentioned, Scott Gustafson, who is a wonderful painter, and I love his work, and I would like to try and do something like him, but I just know it wouldn't have that same charm. So there's probably not a children's book company that's going to come for my work to do what he's doing. So the same thing with something like Magic the Gathering. They have a look. If you look across the board, their work. They have art directors. They have a certain eye for what they're looking for, and I would say you have to judge your work up against the work you see coming out of Magic, and does it look like it would belong in that set? It's and sometimes, and then if it is great, then stay on promoting to that client every 6 months or something like that, and try and be, as aggressive as you can, still being polite with, trying to get your stuff in front of them. And if it's not, be honest enough with yourself that, well, what do I need to do to get it to look like that? Is that really what I want to do? And just kind of be honest with yourself. I think a lot of people, they just love the property of Magic the Gathering, and they get this sort of romantic analogy that, well, I'm going to do fantasy art. That's what I want to do. But the field is so much bigger than that. Yeah. And the truth is, not everybody's appropriate for every job.
Yeah.
Even people who are well qualified and who, I love, like they're good at one thing, but not, they specialize in that. So it's not like they could pick up any job they wanted, so to speak. Again, I kind of make that analogy with Scott Gustafson because he has such a sort of more of a softer children's book kind of look.
Yeah.
Compared to, say, somebody like Donato.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Of course.
Both are great, but they're not going to get the same jobs,
That's it. And I think everyone has, I think the industry is so big, enough. There's not just, people have this thing, Magic and D&D is the only biggest fantasy art client. There are other things, there are other bigger opportunities or just as big. And, sometimes though, I've seen artists where they've got their own style, and because they've even created their own brand, I won't name names, but they've created their own brand of fantasy art, and they get in because they've got a viral following, or they've got an amazing audience, and they're like, Magic gives them a shot. So sometimes it's maybe stick to your own path, be you, do the best you. I think Bob Proctor, who's I love listening to stuff like Bob Proctor. He's a motivational coach and stuff. He passed away last year. But he talks about do you, be the best you, and show the world.
Well,
I
think that comes back to what we were talking about before with the passion. If you're doing, what you love, hopefully that'll show through. I don't want to say you're guaranteed, but and if you can gain a following, then that's another way to be noticed. And then at that point, some of those people are probably like, well, do I want to do Magic or not do Magic? They may be successful enough that, like Boris Vallejo, for example, doesn't do Magic cards. Those guys don't do it. I'm sure it's a rights issue with them. I don't know that he gives up the rights to his artwork or whatever the deal is. But, not everybody does. It is a very prestigious client, but, it's certainly not one you have to have.
No, exactly. Like you said, I'm a big fan of Vallejo's work, Boris's work, and I love what he's done. And that tells you a lot that he's even so big that he doesn't even need them in a way. You know what I mean? So
he does his calendars every year.
Yeah.
That he's been doing for 30 years or something like that, and so they got a dozen paintings that they do there. He still does some other. He's pretty obviously pretty efficient at what he does too. So I'm sure there's quite a bit of other stuff that he does during the year. But so he's amazing.
So we're back, and so we were talking about YouTube and stuff, and Matt, Matt, you're a seasoned professional, as we've talked about. Like you've been doing, big shows like a LuxCon. That's where. And for those of you viewers that don't know, I actually met Matthew Stawicki at a LuxCon in 2018. He was exhibiting in the main show. I was in the showcase, just showing off my work. And we just bumped in. It was just like, a bromance had started, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, well, there's so many people there that you have so much in common with.
Oh, it's amazing.
Not like any other place. I mean, you can be standing in line to try and get a soda, and you strike up a conversation with somebody. You just have so much to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people there's a lot of folks like us there that both work digitally and traditionally. And then that even opens the floodgates there,
That's it. And I remember bumping into John Sideriadis as well. He was also interviewed a couple months ago. I don't know if you remember John. So yeah, and like it's just exactly what you're saying. You have so much in common with other artists at LuxCon. You meet, and people on similar journeys, different paths, but similar journeys. Just either building their art, bringing their own imagination to life, or doing the other thing of like. Just doing their thing, having fun with it, and you talk about different sort of stuff. I think I was like talking to John about different metal bands that we both like, and then because he's Greek like me, I'm Greek Cypriot, but we're talking about different Greek beers and different sort of Greek music and stuff, and it's like this is like my brother, but he's in America, or it's really weird, So
and that's the thing, and we're all cooped up all the time, so you get us out, we're all like, wow.
That's it. I mean, and I think like I do a lot of shows and I meet a lot of nice people, and in Australia it's great. But I think because it's your own country, not that you take it for granted, it's kind of becomes copy paste repeat. But for me, going to another country, either New Zealand or America, I find like it's like a whole new world. Like it sounds like the Aladdin song, but So
yeah, it's true.
It's just, a different experience. But you got to come to Australia sometime, man. We got to get you down here.
Oh, yeah, that'd be all right.
One of my big dreams and visions is actually to set up like a fantasy art museum for Australia in Adelaide, in my city. Like to set up pop culture, not just pop culture, but more like fantasy art, sci-fi, horror. Like imagine LuxCon, but a permanent art gallery, within Australia. That's a dream, and whether that's 10 or 20 years away, but look, if that happens and I get the money to do that, I'm going to fly you down, all right? So
all right, I'm ready. I'll pack a bag now.
That's it. Oh, you might be waiting a bit, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, as I was saying, like we've both been on this journey, like we've got our own trajectory. You've obviously had the big commercial clients, you've done your own art, you've even grown your own art through LuxCon, and you've got your private clients, which is amazing. But we're both, I suppose we're a bit late to the punch with the YouTube thing, and like you and I know, like we're not doing YouTube for the money, we're doing YouTube because we want to share with the world, and it's almost like a recording, like for instance, I don't know, like when I pass on and if I have children or grandchildren, even if my nieces in the future, hi Zara, hi Dean, if they if they see this video, they're like, oh, he said hi to us, it's like a recording of something, so you can go back and show your family or future generations that, hey, this is what I did this cool thing called art, and
I think the bottom line is that for artists like us, is what we're trying to really do is just build like sort of a community around our art. Yeah. And sometimes that takes a while for it to trickle out enough that you have enough voices out there, but doing it, that there's enough people that appreciate it that you can do it as a business, like we're trying to do, And I mean, YouTube, to me, I see that as like doing real shorts, which is like TikTok, that kind of stuff. That's not really that helpful for me. I mean, I'm doing more long format stuff.
Yeah.
And we do throw out a few little things, that just to try and get some attention. But the heart of most of what I'm going to be doing going forward is going to be is either going to be on my website on mattstawicki.com or on YouTube.
Yeah,
on my page there. So and it does take a little while. I mean, even the people who I see that are successful on YouTube, most of them are not people who started last year. These are people who have been doing it for 10 years in some cases that have, this following. And if you look at their early videos compared to what they're doing now, the production gets better, the sound gets better, they get a little more focused in their approach. And that's sort of, we're all kind of learning as we go. I certainly am. YouTube's been a learning experience for me, and it kind of helps me discipline myself a little bit, but that I have to record everything and now, which I didn't, I never really did before. So I'm forced to kind of explain it to some of the things to myself that why do I do this? I'm more aware of it now than I ever was before. But again, we had just touched on this a minute ago, but the 1,000 true fans, that's really it's a theory that I'm sure a lot of the artists that are listening are familiar with, but it's a theory that if you have 1,000 true fans that are willing to spend some money on you, that's enough to make a living. It's not, you don't need to have 1 million people like Taylor Swift or something like that,
I think Taylor Swift's got like 1 billion, but
Yeah, she's not what we're talking about here, exactly. No. For us little people, yeah. So, but I think that the YouTube, because it's a catalog of stuff that kind of sits there, people can find it later, and it really is a cumulative thing, The trick these days that we found difficult is just how to promote, because they really have muddied up a lot of the social media, the organic reach that we used to be able to get. We just can't get anymore. They've blocked down a lot of that stuff. And
you're talking about Facebook or YouTube?
Well, yeah, Facebook. I mean, like Instagram, even to some extent. It's just hard to promote products on that platform. So YouTube seems like the platform that I like. But yeah, how we drive people there. We're talking about Google Ads potentially in 2024. And that kind of thing as being something, to try and reach a broader audience. But ultimately, I'm not necessarily trying to have 1 million followers, although that would be just fine with me. I mean, I wouldn't complain, right? But but if I had 2,000, I'd be pretty happy, and I'd feel like we were marching forward with this thing.
You'll get there. Look, I interviewed. You can go back to look at my videos. Stephen Kwok is an Australian independent comic book writer and creator, and he's got his channel to nearly the 2,000 mark. But they've been grinding for years, like literally doing a video once a month or doing a live stream. They sometimes interview other professionals, and that really is the way to go. Is just continuing, like plugging it. And like I was joking around with, I have Christy, who's my assistant. She helps me with doing all this stuff. Like you said, you've got your mate that helps you as well, a partner on this. And Christy, my assistant, like I was saying to her, I'll do this for a year and see how it goes,
Right.
But now I'm into it, and I'm like doing cool interviews like this with you, and I'm like, I actually really enjoy this. I actually like talking. It gives me a break, because like, as you know, as artists, we get caught up with our work, get caught up with admin or whatever we're doing to run the business. And sometimes you just need that break to have a chat with someone, or to express, just put a video out there and, do some nice video and get some comments and respond to the comments. And, obviously you don't want internet trolls, but I ignore them. But
yeah.
But yeah, I think, initially I was like, I'm just going to do this a year, but now I'm 6 months in, I'm like, I can handle this. If I do interview one professional a month, I just release one art video a month, and that's it, and eventually something will stick, and it might be that I adapt and change how I do it, and it might increase that way, but I think you got to make it fun, easy, fast. Someone said to me, a mentor, one of them said, a business mentor said, just make it fun, easy, and fast.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it gets too tedious, you won't do it. You'll eventually find a reason to bail out of it. So yeah. That's it. We've been trying to do one a month. One of the process videos, one a month, which is usually about, by the time we get it all edited down, or somewhere between a half hour and 40 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
it's a pretty lengthy video, but again, we've been kind of keeping an eye on the people that we do have. We have great times as far as, a lot of people bail out of videos within a minute.
Yeah.
And we have, people who are willing to sit there, which, our analytics have shown us. So it's just a matter of, keeping at it. But as far as, we said we were going to try and do it for 2 years and then see where we were at. Now, we're really not at the beginning of our first real year of doing this will be around January. So
yeah, for sure.
Even though we kind of fumbled with some stuff for a little bit before that, we didn't really begin until the beginning of this year. So the time does kind of fly.
That's it.
Excuse me. We're 6 or 8 months into it, and we're like, we could do it for another year. This wasn't so bad. So
then you get to 1 million followers, and you're like, oh shit, I got to keep on doing this.
Yeah.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into something a little bit topical, but then we're going to go back to something really fun. All right. So
okay. Promises.
Okay, I promise you. First topical, then fun. All right. The topical thing is artificial intelligence art. What is your view on it? The ethical side, everything like that.
Yeah. Well, the AI art. I mean, I just want to say first of all that the computer in general. I remember in the mid '90s, and I was one of the first guys to kind of take the leap into doing illustrated covers digitally. That was sort of a hard sell at the beginning. I had a rep in New York, and he was helping to promote stuff also. And actually, Wizards of the Coast was one of the first bigger clients that took a chance on me doing the full covers in digital rather than painting. So I've never really been afraid of the technology. What I don't like about AI is, and we talked about briefly, was just all of the theft that this thing is based on. I mean, they've done it in such an unethical way that I think it hinders us from even really wanting to explore it, or at least it does me. Now, I watch videos on it, and I've seen some things about Adobe Firefly, which is supposed to be done a little more ethically and trained on just images that they own. And I don't know if I guess they have a Shutterstock type of section of that company, so they use all of that. I think it's interesting, and I do believe that it will affect the field once they can get the copyright stuff straightened out. I think some of the low-hanging fruit that used to be around and I think it already is starting to disappear. It's kind of started to dry up even before AI really hit. I mean, there just wasn't as much of it. You had in-house, again, if I go back to just talking about paperback covers, they have an in-house design team, a lot of the bigger publishers, who will have a handful of people who will, design 85% of the covers that these guys are doing. I don't know how high that number is. Maybe it's 85%, but it seems like a lot. And then they'll sub out the illustration that they have on a few things here or there, or something that's more complex that they're not going to have their in-house people do. But that would have been jobs for a whole bunch of us in years gone past. Now it's a handful of in-house people who are knocking out, who are filling this void, or performing this service. So I think that once they get that worked out, there'll certainly be companies who have essentially the people who are working in the office just blast out these things. And I saw a few months back there was a Tor cover that was an AI piece of generated art that somehow snuck through Tor, and if you believe all the stories. But I just think it shows you that basically the bottom line, I mean, you got to remember is that as much as we love this and our talk about passion and everything, from those companies, this is a business. And the bottom line is how inexpensively can they produce these things? And, knocking a couple $1,000 off of the bottom line by not having an illustrator, for a lot of them is, I think, is good news to them. It's bad news for us, so, but my feeling about the AI is not, in my particular work, I mean, I'm old enough that, I may get another 10 or 15 years in this business before I'm, crazier than a loon and my eyesight's shot and everything else.
No.
And I, also there's some leaning more into traditional art for me, with
Yeah.
private commissions and selling that kind of stuff, which obviously AI is not going to replace that. So I think that may be something that people who are not so inclined to work traditionally may want to consider getting more involved in that if the arts are where they want to go.
Yeah, for sure.
But if it were all ethical to use it, I would probably use it to develop ideas to do some of the stuff, and I would just change what I didn't like about it. That's almost what I do with photographs now. I look at reference and then I paint the parts I want and I pick out the parts I don't want.
Yeah.
So I don't see using AI in my own work any differently than that.
Interesting.
But again, right now it's an ethical issue, and I think it's just a mess. The fact that it was built on stealing all of us, like I said, all of us blind is a terrible first step for any of this. They've got to get some of that under control.
Yeah, I think it's just when it gets to issues like Rudkowski's, I think the guy that works for Magic and D&D,
yeah,
he's like the most the most heavily reference artist on Midjourney, and that kind of stuff really scares me. And I think that's really not on. He didn't ask for his work to be stolen and put in the app. And I think look, I've got no problems with AI creating its data set ethically and not referencing artists, or only if they pay out, if an artist says, look, if you pay me 100,000, you can use my data set, that's a different story. But I'm not going to prescribe to that. I won't. And the other thing is as well, good on you for being so open-minded, to explore if there's an ethical AI. I might play with it, but I did actually, when it first came out, not knowing, understanding what was happening with the theft, I played around with Midjourney, and all the topics and themes and all the prompts, and I'm a writer, so I know how to use words reasonably well. I write comics for a living. Yeah. And the images that came out just didn't match my imagination.
Yeah, that's what right now I think, the images that we're seeing that are so successful, they're just people who are accepting what the machine is giving them. They're not really tweaking it like we do as artists. It's not necessarily a vision.
Exactly, and that's what upsets me the most, is the fact that people, younger kids coming into art, or I've even got students that I teach, they're like, oh, this, I even heard one student say, what's the point? And I go, there is a point, because I've played with the AI and it's still so limited, and I even think it will be limited. Until there's a neural link and it can capture my dreams, exactly what I see in my mind's eye, we're safe. Yeah. And I think this will actually help some people like myself even to have an awakening. I've had this awakening of almost I know this is really, really controversial, but it's I played with the AI and I saw the images it pushed out based on the topics. I'm like, screw you, I'm going to do freaking better. This is crap. I'm looking at them going, this is crap. I could do way better. My imagination is way better than this. I'm not upset about it, but I'm just and what I'm worried about is this falsehood that people think that this is the AI is the ultimate form of imagination and creation, when it isn't. Yeah. I think we are way above that, and the human mind is still on the creative front. I don't think that AI will ever match what I see in my mind's eye when I'm meditating, when whatever, I'm astral projecting, or have some weird visions and dreams that come. I sometimes get paintings that come in my dreams. I actually have these visions, and they're so lifelike. And I just think that, you're right, going to traditional painting, back to traditional. And this is why I'm staying on the YouTube front, is I want to record on my videos so people know that I'm actually painting these. Whether it's traditional or it's digital painting, they're getting the pencil process, they're getting everything, the painting. I might put some photo textures in, and AI bros will be like, oh, you're cheating there, no, I'm just putting a texture and I'm painting over it, It's a concept art technique, It's still painting. I'm painting with a photo, but it's my photo, I've taken the reference,
That's something I was going to say. The AI, you can have an idea in your mind. You type in your prompt, the AI gives you something totally different. So getting to if you have something specific in mind, that's pretty difficult to do, from what I understand with these things.
Yeah.
If you're just willing to accept what the machine gives you, then you can get something pretty nice. Just don't plan on altering it too much. To me, where I could possibly see a use for it in my work is to generate what would basically be reference, where this stuff gets good enough. They work out the hands on the human figures, and then you could essentially have, instead of having to go to shoot models and all this kind of stuff, it would be like, Poser 1000. I mean, this thing it would look completely photographic, and you'd be able to then, use that in your pieces. That would be something I could use the hell out of. That would be great. But again, so it's not. I mean, at least for me, I don't see it as something that I would want to just type in prompts and have it do all the work for me. Because for me, the process is also part of that's the part I enjoy about all this. So I don't want to take that away. I don't want to delegate that to a machine, Yeah. So, I can see where it would be a help, just like the digital programs were sped up the process of traditional art making, I could do something in Painter or Photoshop far faster than I can in oil paint, because there's some advantages there. And I think the AI, always will have this, it will always beat us in speed. So that's the advantage, is the speed. Now, can you get the right concept out? That's a different question. I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying, and I think the only issue I have with the reference that's being made from AI is, again, if it's ethically sourced. But even then, for me, I've dabbled in 3D. I've started learning ZBrush. Obviously, I've sculptured my dice. I've been learning DAZ 3D. And I find I create a lot of my references with DAZ 3D. I compose and I can get references for my paintings. And I actually prefer that, because I'm almost like a film director. I have more control over it than actually AI does. So AI is just random. It's like a random image generator almost. Whereas if you've got a 3D model, you can turn it around. You can get a pose of a dragon, or
you can get exactly what you're looking for.
Exactly. And the lighting, it may not have the total photorealistic lighting worked out. Well, you can once you get good. But if you don't have time, you can still push out the model, the basic lighting, if the light's coming down from the left, if the shadow's being cast, and that's enough reference for you to go and start the painting, as you know.
Yes. I was talking to John Foster. I don't know if you know his work or not.
I do know of his work, yeah.
A few years back, and he was saying that he was showing me some of his ZBrush models, and a lot of his figures are done in ZBrush. They're not based on live actors, so to speak. So I thought that was interesting and great. So So there's a lot of potential. We just gotta, like a lot of things in the world, we just gotta stay off the slippery slopes.
That's it. And I was talking to another colleague, and he was saying that even with DAZ, the future of DAZ, may be that they might source AI, just to put to do the textures, or part of the 3D model might have some AI integrated into it for you, And so I'm not like you, I'm not totally against it. I'm just totally against the theft of other people's work. And until there's a proper system out there that does it all ethically, I'm quite happy as I am, And I think
that's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I think for us as artists continuing forward, and even young artists that are getting into this, I think, all I can say is do YouTube videos, show your process, do traditional painting, do digital painting. Your mind is still is human imagination, Your signature is unique to you. The way you paint your strokes is unique. Yep. Every human has their own kind of, signature. So, but I think we're getting towards the end of this. So I'm going to do something fun. I said, look, we do something serious. We've expressed what we said. The only pro I see to AI is it may be helping people that are disabled, that can't paint, and they want to use it. if they end up with a neural link and they can express their imagination, I'm all for that, helping disabled people. So, but yeah, getting off that topic, funny question. All right. So, Dungeons and Dragons, if you could play a class, right, and a species of some kind, what would you be?
I was going to say, I'm going to break your heart with this because I don't actually play D&D.
Oh no! What? Okay.
No,
I have you over for coffee.
There was someone else who asked me that question once, and I had to tell him, look, I'm not really a gamer. I don't actually play any of the games, Magic or D&D.
That's all right.
I don't really, understand them enough.
All right. Let me rephrase the question. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to put you in my comic book. Let's say I put you in my comic book as a character. What would you be? Like, what sort of species and what sort of magic or like class would you want to be? A fighter, a rogue, a wizard? What do you see? Like, what would be the coolest thing? Or we make a movie out of you as a fictional character. Okay. What would you want to be?
In that case, I'd have to go with the wizard.
Yeah.
I think just having a little magic to get out of some things is always a nice touch. That's better than a sword, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
It's definitely an advantage.
Yeah. So and I mean, from an art point of view, they're always fun to paint too. They always have something kind of some kind of effect to play around with. It seems like when you're doing them, some lighting, something like that. So
you can have like a color dodge going on, or you could have a glow effect with acrylic paint or something happening around the fingertips or something. But is there a particular species? Would you just be a human? Would you be a normal Matt Stawicki wizard, or would you be?
I think I probably would just stay the way I am.
Really? No, not even a gnome, not even a dwarf, or nah, just human wizard. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's boring, man. Yeah. Come on, you're gonna give me.
I know. What can I say? That wasn't as fun as you thought it was gonna be.
Damn. I mean, you can ask me what you think I'd be, but it's all good. It's up to you. You want to know?
Go ahead, tell us. Yeah, hit us.
Probably druid. I'd be a druid.
Okay.
So, I like the idea of shape-shifting into animals. And obviously, being plant-based or pro-environmentalist myself, like that suits me. But then I'd probably be like either like a tabaxi, like a cat warrior druid. So, I can, be like a cat, humanoid cat, or maybe a dragonborn, like an actual full-blown half humanoid dragon. Either something animalistic, I think, suits me. I don't know why, but I think
that sounds cool.
Yeah,
very
something
cool
like that. But we'll have to paint a picture of that. I reckon. Have you as a wizard?
Yeah.
And me as the druid, huh? Eventually, one day, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
That sounds good. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the channel. It's another pleasure, Matt. I'm sure, when we're both viral, I'm going to get you back. All right.
Yes, sir.
Either one, it's just always a pleasure talking to you, and want to thank you as well for coming on the channel. Thank you for thanks for the motivation and the advice that you always give. So I really appreciate you, helping me out in my career as well. So
excellent. I'm glad to do it, man. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. And where can I find you? So, if people want to find, it's Nature Dragons, but just Matt Stawicki on YouTube. We're going to put the links in the bottom.
It's Matt Stawicki Shop is what it's called, is the YouTube channel. We've got some kind of a handle. I can't keep them all straight. I think it's Stawicki Dragons.
Yeah.
That's Stawicki Dragons. But if you just type in Stawicki, there's not that, that's pretty much all me on YouTube. So.
That's it. Awesome.
Yeah. So that and mattstawicki.com is where we have all the, prints and that kind of stuff like that.
Fantastic. That's good. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future. And we'll have a big celebration video when we're both viral. So
there we go. Sounds good.
No worries,
all right, man.
Thank you.
All right, Anthony. I'll talk to you soon.